welcome back to Trekyards, everybody. He is Commander Cockings.
He's got it Foley.
Am I?
Is he? There's always a question when we talk Changeling, Stuart. There's always a confusion.
I just might be a Changeling. We're not quite sure. I'm just glad we have a computer that we can communicate on, so I don't have to cut my hand off for my hand communicator device. Now, we're talking about just Changelings in general today, but we saw some funky stuff from them in the last episode and this one, and some very non-Changeling-like things going on. So we're going to talk about it. Are they new Changelings, or are they the Changelings we know and love from the Great Link, a la Odo?
Yes, so of course the logic being that they are now a goo, organic metamorphosing version versus the liquid, glowing, sort of viscous goo. So they look different, which is obviously a hint. The way they are interacted with, as in a punch, or there's the famous scene from the pilot of DS9 where someone throws a projectile, a physical weapon at Odo, and it goes through him. You associate changing with a goo. If you punch, if you do something, it becomes goo. It doesn't misform in the way they show it. So everything we're seeing is different, but still Changeling. As you say, Vadik confirmed. Changeling. Oh my goodness. The hand of discussion. I mean, talked about reactions, Stuart, because that was a real thing they did.
Seeing that was quite odd, because cutting off the hand and then, well, first of all, why are you cutting it off when you're a shapeshifter? You should be able to just attach it.
Hadn't considered that.
Yeah, and second of all, why is it forming into a face of what looks like a demon? So she's not, the big bad necessarily. She's, a pawn of the big bad, kind of like an intermediary bad. So it was a weird scene in total.
Well, that was a really smart thing to say, that she shouldn't have had to cut it off, obviously. That's not how that works. They can just take off pieces of themselves instantly. Ooh. Well, again, the design is so different that it's clearly a different subspecies. The idea that we said previously that they've obviously left the Great Link. Odo did, but he was left when he was young. I assume that he grew up differently, etc. And obviously he had different abilities slightly as well, the way he couldn't form his face properly, etc. So if it's kind of like the Sono with the Barcud, once they left, things went a bit awry. Maybe they genetically modified themselves to have different abilities or whatever. And I in general like the idea that they are one big life form / small life form. So if you can electrify a part of your entity and connect it via subspace to the home base, then of course it can metamorphose, and that's interesting, sure. And I don't know why you can just do comms, because if you have to send a signal into the goo, you could just send a phone call.
That could be intercepted, though, possibly. Maybe this way is not interceptable. I don't know.
Yes, probably.
It seems like a link to a Great Link.
But you still need the deflector to send a signal, which would be trackable. Both ways of sending out a signal. It's not doing it by itself. They can't communicate over great distances by themselves. That's why she went to a place that was clearly like a technology thing. It was a basin. It was a thing, right? But the fact that she cut it off implies to me, and the fact that she's been Vadik the entire time, but who's she being Vadik for? Why is she corporeal? Why is she giving orders slowly when she could be goo, or there's more you could do in theory. Why is she Vadik? So maybe she has been forced to stay mostly solid, part of the genetically modified new Changeling variants, where they are sent out on long form missions. They have to stay in humanoid form a lot longer, and it messes up their goo ability, so that she has to cut her arm off to kind of force it to do a reversion, because she can't undo it herself.
Possibly. I mean, it's just odd, too, that Shaw points out, they need a bucket to regenerate. Well, first of all, they don't. They just need a container. I love that Odo was shown, though, on the pad with his bucket. And the residue bucket, I love that he calls it that. It's great. An interesting idea. Again, it seems out of left field. It's trying to make it a lot like Odo, and I don't know if that's necessarily needed, but what did you think of that whole thing? Go find his bucket. There's got to be residue in it, and then you can trace him or track him with the ship's internal sensors. I was like, okay, it's kind of a good idea, but I don't remember them leaving residue behind.
Well, yeah, it sounds great in principle, but there's 3 problems. 1, you wouldn't hide the bucket in the room of the man that you took over. You would hide it somewhere else.
Yeah, like in one of the lower decks or underneath, like a Jeffries tube or something.
And as soon as you got caught out, you'd move it because it's the most important thing you have on the ship. So it wouldn't still be there, first of all.
Yeah.
Second, you don't leave residue ever unless they're this new version, so that also didn't work. And also, you know the composition of changelings from previous missions, so you could scan for them anyway. If it was that easy, you could just do that. If the goo is important, it's if they're in their goo state, but they're not in their goo state, they're in their humanoid state. And if you scan
you have to scan all life forms aboard and see what's not human.
Yeah, if it was that easy, then why would the goo make a difference? You already know what the changeling is made of explicitly. Yeah, it was. I don't know what they were scanning for. Like, I much preferred the idea of it's all a ploy. We are just grabbing the bucket as this is your lifeline. That was funny, you know. Like you say, Odo regenerated in Luxana Troy's dress once. It's a container, right? The bucket is irrelevant. It's a container space.
Yeah.
But I thought they were going to play up in further and be like, Captain Shaw, I've got the changeling's container, and I'm going to deck 6, and I'm on. It was the fact they were found instantly with no lead up was odd because there's no reason to think that the changing would randomly be in that corridor without a lead up. Especially since you'd think if the point was a trap, you would wait to spring the trap in the bay that you were going to, where you had force fields and guards, because clearly they shot it to death or shot it to stun. Like, these things are killable. There's nothing special about them in that way. So if she just got there without being randomly noticed, she could have, had guards with rifles to shoot it.
Well, I don't think they were trying to lay a trap there. She was actually literally trying to contact the chemistry lab to trace the elements within. I don't know. Which is weird because, as you said, we already done the Dominion War. We know what shapeshifters or changes are made out of. So just scan for those items.
Which would be great if she'd called out, it's different, but she wouldn't know that. She doesn't know changelings either. So they kind of jumped a couple of sharks there, I think it's fair to say, with this little breakdown. And
even the ending, where she stunned it or killed it, because the last time we saw them, if you assume the ones that came on in episode 1 onto Beverly's ship, the Ilios, that she vaporized into ash, were changelings, because that's pointed out that they're vaporized in ash, and then when Worf kills the other one, again, same kind of thing with ash.
Also, it's Vadic's guards, so they could be, they should be, they might be. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so with all that taken into consideration, this one isn't dead then? Because it did and then it kept the shape. The eyes kind of went a funky color.
Keep its shape, though.
That doesn't make any sense.
Like, they
even if it was stunned, you would assume it would lose its cohesion.
That's sort of the whole point of a changeling. And they certainly didn't, that's why I say if they'd gone to a lab, they could have done an anti-reversion, like they did with the Romulans with Odo, and then it would have been forced to hold shape. Great, but they kind of just skipped all those steps and just shot it.
Which was confusing the more we talk about it, actually. When I first watched it, I was like, that's weird. Moving on.
But we've seen clips in later episodes where Seven's rolling around with a rifle. There's the guy that shot the person in the trailer is not the guy that shot the person in this episode. So I assume they're going to come back and do more Starfleet v Starfleet stuff. So definitely stunned rather than killed, but very unclear. Definitely new species, modified. Just everything we've seen now is so not what they could do that they're different. Which makes sense. I mean, if they're there to cause massive extreme chaos, do they care if they survive past it? Do they care if they want to be the weapon? They want to be the want to win. Win is the important thing, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, what are your thoughts on these? Do you think they're new changeling variants or some kind of subspecies? Let us know what you guys think in the comment section, and become part of our great link by subscribing to the channel and clicking that notification bell icon so you can. Don't have to cut your hand off each time, or we don't have to cut our hands off each time that we make a video. Yep. You guys will just get notified. We don't have to communicate with you in that regard. So do all the things and join us for lives as well.
Yes, join our great link of the YouTube lives. Be one with us, discuss. We share thoughts in one giant streaming chat window. And if you want to, help with some what are the Ketchell White donations? For our wonderfully well treated foot helpers.
And bucket donations. We
Oh yeah.
You want a Latinum blind bucket, right?
Yeah. You want Latinum press Latinum? Screw gold press Latinum. Yes, Patreon. Join the channel. Both monthly ways. It's the join button or the link down below for the Patreon, or one-time donations via the PayPal, trekyards@hotmail.com, or the super thanksings. Any video, there's a button which says super thanks, and the super chat, as you say, on the live as well. All helpful, all essential, in fact. And thanks so much in advance.
So until next time, I assume he's Commander Calkins.
We'll never know if he's Captain Foley.
No, never.
Bye, guys.